James's jaw tightened as he turned back toward Gloria. "Impossible or not," he said slowly, "the results are undeniable. My daughters are healing. That's what matters." But Gloria wasn't done. Her lips trembled with barely contained fury. "You don't understand, sir. You don't understand, sir. Women like her, they come into homes like ours with smiles and secrets. Next thing you know, they're in control." Kesha tilted her head, her voice calm but sharp enough to slice through the tension. "And what exactly do you mean by women like me, Gloria?" The room went still. James shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting between them. Gloria hesitated but said nothing. Kesha slowly slipped her phone into her pocket again. Her posture was straight, her expression unreadable. "I'm here for Ruby and Rose, nothing else." If you can't accept that, the truth will reveal itself in time. At that very moment, Ruby and Rose burst through the double doors, their hair tangled from play, cheeks flushed with joy. "Daddy," Kesha showed us how to build a fort. Can she stay forever? The innocent question froze everyone in place. Ooh. Gloria's face drained of color. James, for the first time in years, felt warmth spread across his chest. The girls hadn't smiled like that since their mother died. He knelt down, hugging his daughters tight, but his eyes never left Kesha. Who exactly was this woman who had walked into his home like a stranger and now seemed to hold the key to his family's future? Because James Whitmore was starting to suspect something. Kesha Williams wasn't just a nanny. She was hiding a past powerful enough to change everything. The Whitmore mansion felt like it was holding its breath. Gloria's voice cracked as she insisted, "Icy's manipulating you, Mr. James. That's what they do. Come in humble, play the miracle worker, then start demanding. First a raise, then gifts, then..." But her words were losing strength. Each accusation sounded weaker than the last. Kesha didn't flinch. She simply stood there, hands steady at her sides, that same unshakable calm on her face. It wasn't arrogance. It was certainty. 3 weeks ago, when she had stepped off that bus from Detroit, she already knew this battle was coming. She had seen it her entire life, how women like Gloria clung to power in wealthy homes, how they saw any outsider as a threat. What Gloria didn't know was that Kesha Williams wasn't just any outsider. James tried to interject, his tone softer. "Gloria, maybe you're overreacting. The girls are finally sleeping, eating, even laughing again. That's not manipulation, that's progress." Gloria's face flushed red. Progress? She stands there like she knows something we don't. "That's not normal, Mr. James." The words hung in the air, and then Kesha's voice, calm but piercing, cut through the silence. "Actually, I do know something you don't." The air seemed to freeze. Kesha stepped closer, her eyes locking onto Gloria's. Ruby wakes at 2:30 every night dreaming of falling, because in her mind she's reliving her mother's accident. Rose won't sleep until she checks the doors because she believes this house is no longer safe since the day her mother never came back. James's chest tightened. He had never shared those details, not with anyone, not even Gloria. But Kesha wasn't finished. "And I know, Gloria, that you've been telling the other housekeepers in your little WhatsApp group that this family deserves someone of the right social standing. That maybe I'm here to take advantage of a lonely widower." Gloria's face went pale, then crimson. She stammered, "How? How did you—" James turned slowly, disbelief etched across his features. "Is that true?" Gloria's lips moved, but no words came out. Kissia's gaze didn't waver. There was no anger, only a quiet power that filled the room. "The truth, Mr. Whitmore," she said evenly, "is that I didn't take this job just to be a nanny. Your family needs much more than that." And Gloria, her smile was razor sharp, has been standing in the way of that healing for a long time. For the first time in 15 years of loyal service, Gloria looked afraid. And for the first time in 3 weeks, James realized something. This woman standing in front of him, this mysterious nanny, was far more than she seemed. Kesha reached for the leather folder on the side table, her voice dropping lower, steadier, dangerous. "You want the truth about what's really happening in this house? Then let's begin at the very start. But know this, Gloria." She paused, opening the folder just enough for the papers inside to be seen. "Once I show him what's in here, there's no going back." Gloria stumbled backward, panic flashing in her eyes. "Mr. James, she's trying to manipulate you." But James wasn't listening anymore. His eyes were locked on Kesha, on that folder, and on the storm that was about to break inside his home. Kesha wasn't just polite. She wasn't just polite. She wasn't just competent. She was formidable. Her voice stayed calm, steady, but every word hit like a blade. 3 weeks ago, when I accepted this job, she said, opening the leather folder, it wasn't because I needed money. It was because I received a very interesting call. She placed her phone on the table and tapped play. Dr. Patricia Coleman's voice filled the room. Gloria, I need to tell you something. Kesha Williams is not an ordinary nanny. She holds a master's degree in child psychology, specializes in pediatric trauma, and has run her own clinic. A professional like her doesn't take domestic work out of necessity. She takes it for a reason. The room went silent, except for the faint sound of Ruby and Rose laughing in the garden outside. James turned to Keisha, his throat dry. You have a master's degree. A University of Michigan, she answered softly. 5 years at Detroit Children's Hospital. Then I opened my own trauma clinic. His eyes narrowed. Then why come here? Her answer was ice cold. Because this wasn't about money. It was about justice. From her folder, she drew a set of documents and slid them across the table. 6 months ago, you fired Marcus Johnson. Do you remember him, James? James? The engineer who designed your latest residential complex? James leaned forward uneasy. Marcus, yes. There were issues. His tone sharpened. The issues were that Gloria told your HR department that employees like him didn't fit the Whitmore image. Nice. She placed a printed email on the table, dated and copied to half the board. James's face blanched. How do you have this? He whispered. Keshia's eyes burned into his. Because Marcus Johnson is my younger brother, the revelation landed like a thunderclap. James slumped back into his chair, stunned. Gloria's lips trembled, the color draining from her face. Kesha pressed forward, her voice calm but edged with fire. I'm full of fire. 2 days before the birth of his third child, my brother lost his job because of your company's prejudice. 4 months unemployed. Nearly lost his home. His wife spiraled into untreated postpartum depression because they lost their insurance. All because of a whisper campaign started by her. She turned to Gloria, whose hands were shaking now. You poisoned this house just like you poisoned his career. Always in the shadows. Always with whispers. James looked at the woman he had trusted for 15 years and felt his stomach twist. I didn't know, he muttered. Of course you didn't, Kesha replied evenly. Because Gloria made sure you wouldn't. The housekeeper tried one last desperate defense. A Mr. James, can't you see? This is a trap. She's here to destroy you. Keshia's lips curved into the faintest smile sharp enough to cut. You're right, Gloria. I planned this. Every step. But not to destroy anyone. Her voice dropped lower, more dangerous. I planned this to expose how prejudice thrives in silence, how it shapes decisions in families and companies, until someone finally drags it into the light. She lifted her phone again, scrolling until a set of screenshots appeared. And now, Mr. Whitmore, it's time you see the messages that tie it all together. Gloria's knees buckled, and for the first time in her career, the woman looked terrified. Kesha's voice was calm, but the weight of her words pressed the room down like a storm. All of our conversations over the last 21 days have been recorded. With legal consent, I told you on my first day I'd be documenting my work for professional purposes. Every comment, every act of sabotage, every whisper of prejudice, all preserved. James glanced at Gloria, and for the first time in years, the woman looked small, fragile, exposed. Kesha's tone softened, but the truth cut sharper than any blade. The twins are finally sleeping, not because of medication, but because they're being treated by someone who recognizes the signs of grief in children. Trauma needs care, not pills. She closed the folder deliberately and fixed her gaze on James. The question now is this: what are you going to do with this information? Keep letting people like Gloria shape your choices about your employees and about your daughters? At that exact moment, Ruby and Rose burst through the doorway, their laughter filling the tense silence. Eyes at Addie. Kushia. We found a bird's nest in the oak tree. Their innocence cut through the heaviness like sunlight through storm clouds. The girls wrapped themselves around Kesha, their small arms clinging with a trust that had taken months to build after their mother's death. And James, watching, realized the truth he could no longer escape. Kesha hadn't just cared for his daughters, she had healed them. But before he could speak, Kesha continued, her voice low and steady. What you don't know yet, James, is that my documentation goes beyond conversations. I've traced connections between glorious prejudice here in your home and systematic patterns inside your company. Patterns that extend far past Marcus's case. Patterns that, once revealed, could change the way this city's entire business elite thinks about responsibility and the cost of their prejudice. The words hung heavy. Gloria shifted, her face pale. Ruby tugged at her father's sleeve. Daddy, want to see the drawing we made with Kesha about our bedtime routine? The girls ran to fetch their papers, leaving the adults in silence. Gloria seized the pause, desperate for survival. Mr. James, don't you see? She's manipulating the children. She's turning them against us. Careful, Kesha interrupted softly, picking up her tablet. Her calmness was more terrifying than anger. Because I still have 15 minutes of footage from Ruby's birthday party. Do you want me to play the part where you told Mrs. Henderson that people like me shouldn't have access to children from traditional families? Gloria's face drained of all color. The birthday party. 20 elite families. If those words leaked, her reputation would shatter overnight. But Kesha wasn't finished. She swiped the screen, her voice unshakable. I also have your messages in the Premium Executive Nanny's WhatsApp group, where you shared photos of me without consent, speculating about my real motives with this family. James took the tablet from her hand, scrolling, his jaw tightening with every line he read. Finally, his voice cracked through the silence. Gloria, you shared private photos of my daughter's nanny with strangers. You spread gossip about my home, my children. Yeah, Ma. I was just being cautious, she stammered. James's voice rose, sharp and cutting. Cautious? You violated my family's privacy. You sabotaged my employees. And you did it all under the mask of loyalty. Kesha stood still, letting the weight of his words land. This was exactly what she had calculated. James's pride as a father and as a businessman turned into her sharpest weapon. She tapped the folder once more. And there's more. Gloria, do you recall recommending the dismissal of 3 black employees over the last 2 years? Always dressed up as technical reasons. The silence deepened until it was suffocating. James turned to Gloria, his face ashen. Keshi's voice carried every ounce of precision she was known for. Jennifer Watson, financial analyst, terminated after you claimed she didn't fit the corporate culture. David Miller, architect, transferred to a dead-end department after your comment about his suitability for certain clientele. She paused, letting each name cut into the air like a verdict. And in that moment, James Whitmore realized. The woman who had run his household for 15 years hadn't been protecting his family. She had been poisoning it. Kesia's eyes didn't waver as James searched her face for answers. But there's one last revelation that neither you nor Gloria knew, she said, sliding a sealed envelope across the table. James hesitated before opening it. Inside were copies of contracts, bank transfers, and internal memos. His face darkened with every page. Oh, this can't be possible, he whispered. Kesia's voice was steady, almost surgical. It's not just firings and blocked hires. Gloria was acting as a gatekeeper, yes, but not on her own. The network extends into Whitmore's board. At least 3 executives benefited directly from her recommendations, ensuring that promotions and contracts flowed to their chosen allies. That's why Marcus lost his job. It wasn't about his performance. It was about power and prejudice woven together. James's hand shook as he dropped the papers on the table. You're telling me this wasn't just my housekeeper's bias, this was systemic sabotage, orchestrated from within? Kesha nodded. And it goes further. Some of those blocked hires, they ended up at competing firms. Competitors who suddenly began outperforming your own team. Gloria wasn't just protecting her so-called values, she was helping undermine your company's growth while cloaking it all under the language of tradition. James stood, pacing, his voice a mix of fury and disbelief. For years, I let this happen. I let prejudice dictate not only my family's safety but my company's future. Kesha's reply cut through the silence, which means tomorrow's audit isn't just about reinstating employees. It's about exposing the board members who enabled this. Yes. If you don't, Whitmore Industries will remain exactly what Gloria made it. A machine that destroys talent in the name of protecting privilege. Before James could respond, the sound of laughter drifted in from the garden. Ruby and Rose were chasing fireflies, their giggles rising into the night. He glanced at the window, watching their joy, and then back at Kesha. "You forced me to see what I should have seen long ago," he said quietly. But exposing this will cause a war in the company. My family name. My position." Kesha stepped closer, her voice low but unflinching. "James, privilege gives you two choices: to preserve it or to use it to tear down the injustice it was built on. Tonight, you decide what kind of man your daughters will remember." James closed his eyes, then exhaled slowly. When he opened them, the hesitation was gone. Then tomorrow the war begins. But what James didn't know was that Kesha had already taken one more step. While Gloria was packing her bags in disgrace, Kesha had quietly sent a copy of the documents to a journalist, an investigative reporter who had been following Whitmore Industries for months. The storm was no longer coming. It had already begun.